If millions of American kids grow up playing soccer, why isn't soccer one of America's biggest sports? Hi, I'm Jason, and this is Jason's Easy English, a podcast that helps you improve your English and learn about American culture with clear, understandable episodes in authentic, everyday language. Today, we'll be talking about soccer in the United States, or football. With the World Cup as our backdrop, this is a great time to ask why the world's favorite sport still has a smaller place in mainstream American sports culture. A quick reminder, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. All right, let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to clear up one common idea. Americans do like soccer. In fact, some Americans are die-hard fans. Die-hard fans are fans who are extremely loyal and passionate. So in Portuguese, it might be something like torcedores fanáticos, or en español, aficionados incondicionales. These die-hard fans watch games every week, wear their team's shirts or jerseys, travel to matches, and know the players and teams very well. And with the World Cup being played in North America, soccer has been getting a huge amount of attention. The tournament is being hosted by the United States, Mexico, and Canada, with 11 U.S. cities hosting matches. But soccer still has a long way to go before it becomes as central to American sports culture as American football, basketball, or baseball, and even hockey. So why is that? One reason is simple. America's sports market is already overcrowded, very saturated. The NFL has football season. The NBA has basketball. Major League Baseball plays through the spring, summer, and early fall. And hockey has its fans too. And we can't forget college sports. College football and college basketball are extremely important in many parts of the country. For Americans, supporting one of these teams starts when they're children. Maybe your parents love the Dallas Cowboys, so you learn to root for them. Here's a good verb to remember, to root for, which means to support and want a team to win. So in Portuguese, it's something like torcer por, or in Spanish, apoyará. Maybe your grandparents watched the New York Yankees, so your parents watched the Yankees, and now you watch them and root for them too. These traditions obviously can pass very easily from one generation to the next. Soccer has passionate supporters here too, but it has to compete with sports traditions that are already deeply connected to many American families and communities. And this brings us to something I find especially interesting. American kids. Soccer is a very familiar youth sport in the United States. Drive through many American towns on a Saturday morning, and you see many fields full of children playing soccer. This is what we call youth soccer, organized soccer played by children and teenagers. And it's a very big deal in the United States. So here's the strange part. A child can play soccer for several years without becoming a big soccer fan as an adult. Playing the sport and following the professional sport are two very different things. That can seem surprising to listeners from Brazil and other parts of Latin America. Of course, not everyone in those countries loves soccer, but in many communities, professional soccer has a strong connection to local identity, family traditions, and everyday life. In the United States, youth soccer has been common for decades, but that hasn't always created the same connection to the professional game. So soccer faces a difficult challenge. It needs to break through, meaning to become noticed and successful despite strong competition, right? So in Portuguese, conseguir se destacar, or in Spanish, lograr destacar. It needs to break through, destacar. And that competition never really stops. Think about the American sports calendar. In the fall, soccer competes for attention with American football, including the NFL, and college football. During the winter, basketball and hockey are going strong. And in the spring, baseball begins. By the summer, baseball is in the middle of its season. There's almost always another major sport asking for your attention, but also your participation. But here's where the story gets more interesting. Soccer has already caught on. Let's stop for a second. When I say soccer has caught on, that means it's become popular with a group of people, right? Ya pegó in Portuguese, or ya está ganando popularidad in Spanish. So soccer has already caught on in some American communities. There are places where soccer culture is very strong, like in Kansas City, Missouri, or in Portland, Oregon, for example. Fans meet before games, wear team colors, they sing together, they wave flags, and create an atmosphere that can surprise people who still believe Americans don't care about soccer. We do. And American soccer fans don't only watch American teams. Walk into the right sports bar on a weekend morning and you might see some people watching English, Spanish, or other European soccer. Some fans organize their whole morning around an important match. So these aren't casual fans. Soccer is a serious part of their lives. That's why I think saying Americans don't like soccer misses an important part of the story. Many Americans, many Americans, absolutely love soccer. The bigger question is, why hasn't that passion spread across the country in the same way as it has with football, baseball, or basketball? And that brings us back to the World Cup. A World Cup match in a packed stadium, right? A packed stadium is a stadium that is completely or almost full. Un estadio lotado in Portuguese, or un estadio llenísimo in Spanish. That's a powerful experience. You have thousands of people wearing national colors. You hear the songs and the chants. You see the flags everywhere. And for a few weeks, people who normally don't follow soccer may suddenly start talking about it. Maybe a coworker asks, "Hey, did you see the match last night?" Maybe a friend who never watches soccer suddenly knows the names of a few players. That person might become a bandwagon fan. Hang on, time out. We need to explain this important term, a bandwagon fan. A bandwagon fan is someone who starts supporting a team or sport when it becomes successful or popular. So in Portuguese, it might be un torcedor de ocasión, or in Spanish, aficionado de ocasión. So that person might become a bandwagon fan. And you know what? That's not necessarily a bad thing. Every fan has to start somewhere. The real question is, what happens after the World Cup is over? Will those new fans continue watching? Will children who play soccer become adults who also watch soccer? Will more families begin to root for soccer teams together, creating traditions that pass from parents to children? Well, maybe. But cultural change usually takes time. So if you ask me why soccer isn't one of America's biggest sports, I don't think there's one single simple answer. The U.S. already has several powerful sports traditions. The calendar is crowded. Many Americans grow up with strong connections to football, basketball, baseball, college sports, or hockey. At the same time, soccer is clearly a big part of American life. We do have die-hard fans. We have millions of people who grew up with youth soccer, me included. We have cities where soccer has really caught on. And now we have a World Cup being played on American soil as well as in Canada and in Mexico, throughout North America. So maybe the question isn't, why don't Americans like soccer? A better question might be, can soccer break through and become a bigger part of America's already crowded sports culture? After this World Cup, we may have a better idea. All right, I hope that explanation was interesting and somewhat understandable. Before I let you go, let's review the main points of today's podcast. Today, we learned that soccer has a very interesting place in American culture. We talked about die-hard fans, those people who are extremely loyal and passionate about a team or sport. There are definitely die-hard soccer fans in the United States, even if soccer isn't as popular nationwide as football, basketball, and baseball. We also talked about youth soccer, organized soccer for children and teenagers. Many American kids grow up playing soccer, but playing the sport doesn't always mean they'll follow professional soccer when they're older. We learned the expression to root for, which means to support a team and want it to win. In American families, people root for the same football, baseball, or basketball team across several generations. We also heard the expression to break through, meaning to become successful despite strong competition or opposition. Soccer is still trying to break through in a crowded American sports market. Then we learned the term catch on, which means to become popular. Soccer has already caught on strongly in some American cities and communities, like Kansas City, Missouri, or Portland, Oregon, even if that popularity isn't the same everywhere. We talked about a packed stadium, a stadium that is full or almost full. World Cup matches can create an incredible atmosphere in packed stadiums and introduce new people to the excitement of soccer. And finally, we learned about the bandwagon fan. That's someone who starts following a team or sport when it suddenly becomes successful or popular. The World Cup may create some new bandwagon fans, and some of them might eventually become diehard fans. Culturally, the important point is that soccer isn't absent from American life. It has passionate fans, strong communities, and a big presence in youth sports. But it also has to compete with several sports that have deep family and community traditions in the United States. The World Cup gives soccer a very big stage. What happens after the tournament may tell us even more about soccer's future here in the U.S. All right, that's all I have for today's episode. I hope you were able to understand most of it and learn something new about American culture. Be sure to follow or subscribe to my podcast, and please share Jason's Easy English with friends who are also learning English. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you at the next episode.